right, so we're going to switch back to English. My Norwegian, unfortunately, is as predictable as the weather in this wonderful country, so I will spare you from that. Getting started, I am an American. Thank you for not booing. I never know in this day and age. I'm here in Norway, and as they mentioned, CMO, they just literally started this job last week. A little company called Appear-In. It actually was a company created in another very large telecom here in Norway. We won't name names, but it rhymes with Eleanor. Recently broke off, and now we're sort of on the startup journey once again. Working in the Catapult Accelerator as well. This is an impact tech program taking place right here. I was also the vice president of a little site called MySpace. This crowd actually looks old enough to remember MySpace, I think so. And I've invested in many, many startups, all at the early stage. So I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and the really ugly as well. As part of my journey here in Norway, I actually wrote a little book as well. It's called Working with Norwegians. And by the way, if you want to make the colleagues you work with incredibly nervous, tell them you're writing a book called Working with Norwegians. They weren't exactly very open in sharing, but you can find this at many bookstores here in Norway. And in this book, I do a lot of comparisons, Silicon Valley way versus the Norwegian way. And I'm not here to say that one way is better than the other. And actually, both have their merits. I think actually if you could mirror or merge the two, you would have an ideal combination. You would have the drive and ambition of Americans, maybe a little arrogance as well, but you'd have the trust and the integrity of Norwegians. Because I learned a few things while I was here. I want to share those with you. Number one, you love your personal space. You know, this is an actual photo, Norwegian bus stop. Now, it's pretty damn cold in this country. You think you would want to be a little bit closer together. But in Norway, it is about personal space. It's also about not bothering other people. This is a big part of culture. Yes, janteloven, the law of janta. This was an amazing concept for me to try and understand. Now, I'm originally from Los Angeles. All people do in Los Angeles is tell you why they're better than you. That's literally all they do. So as I look through these and I start to think about the startup journey and the founders, they can't follow these rules. So I actually work with founders to encourage them to bend and in some cases break these rules. And I will say though, my view is that these have held back Norwegian society in business. So we need to help younger generations be a little bit bolder, take more chances. If they have done something great, not be afraid to get up on stage here and talk about it. I also learned about setting goals. So let's say that this is the goal that we want to achieve. It's a good goal, it's average, it's not too ambitious. How would we look at this between Norway and Silicon Valley? Norway, the blue, is where you would set the goal. Just a little bit under that. You would always exceed it. In Norway, it's incredibly important to follow through, to do what you'll say you will do. But you will always hit your expectations, although you will set them rather low. What is the American version? We will set expectations way too high. We will massively overpromise, and we're not likely to get there. But see where the difference is. That ambition, pushing the envelope, pushing much higher, the end result is much, much higher. I learned about differences in marketing, of course. American versus Norway. I love advertising in Norway. No one is ever too happy. It's all about being content. A product is never better than someone else. But as we can see in America, it's better. It makes you happier, sexier, richer, whatever it might be. Norway, it's kind of more like, it's a nice product. You can buy it, but you don't need to. Yeah. I learned about Norwegian risk appetite. To a Norwegian, this is fine. This is totally normal. You will do the most crazy hikes. You will dangle your feet over the edge. This scares the hell out of me. This is fine. However, when it comes to taking a chance on something new, be it a technology, some new product, something new, anything, it doesn't matter. No, we can't do that. So you do have an incredibly risk-averse society. This is a big challenge in startups. Remember, startups are all about changing the paradigm, something new. It's why some things have been a little bit slower to catch on here. And I want to talk a little bit about that as well, working with startups. I think I see a lot of suits here, so I'm assuming a lot of corporations. I think the view was that corporations, the startups needed you more than the other way around, and that's just not true. I think we saw a great example here with Unicast and Telia. For a startup working with a large corporation, it is a massive risk. The biggest risk being opportunity cost. They can go down an incredibly long process with you, eat up all their time and energy. And that really is the startup's greatest weakness, is time. If they don't get to market, if they don't grow, they will run out of oxygen, slash money, and they will not be able to get there. Now, today, if we think about startups in Norway, this is kind of what it looks like. You corporations are the big fish. You're chasing startups. There's not too many of them. It's almost like a petting zoo. You love to say innovation. You go to corporations and you say, look, we have a startup. It's a startup petting zoo. You can take a look at it. And that's okay. But this is changing so rapidly. I've been doing business here now for 4 years. And just in those 4 years, I've seen a magnitude of change. Because my honest feeling and hope is that this will flip. It will get to a point where there'll be more startups than you can account for. They will be taking little pieces for you. There are many people in the community, and this is what I do. I work hard to help these startups take away from you. And I wanted to talk a little bit about at least a few good examples of what I've seen. We saw Unicast and Telia, great example. Because what do startups need? They need distribution. They need your brand equity to build trust. As we know, trust is incredibly important here in Norway. This is an example of a fintech app called Dreams, actually a Swedish company. And many times, like Sweden's tried to come here and be it with products or other means and hasn't done too well. So they were smart to partner up with Storebrand, giving them access to their customers, getting them that initial growth, which is where startups really, really struggle the most. It's a financial product. They want to feel safe. You know, you're going to store your money with some random startup in Sweden? No, you're going to feel much safer putting it there with Storebrand. And what they did is they started with that, distribution, helping them get customers, helping them build that trust. They later came in as an equity owner. I think that's a great method. It allowed them to see, to get to understand, to get to work with them before putting in some cash. Another great example is Payer and DNB. This is more of an example coming in purely as cash. Through a venture role, it allows you to get close to them. It allows you to get what we call in the business information rights. This is powerful. This allows you to sort of see the inner workings of a startup, help you make decisions, potentially be used for future M&A. Now, there's a lot to go into in this field, but we have very quick 10-minute talks. But I want to talk about one other thing, and this goes back to some of the fear of failure here. The secret to startup success, much of it in Silicon Valley, is not success at all. It's actually failing. It's getting out there and taking a risk. It's learning and adapting. You can say in Silicon Valley, many people have failed up their entire career. I might be one of those people. Because what happens in failure? You learn, you adapt, you tend to not make the same mistake again. It becomes very painful, be it financially or emotionally. And so while I wish you all great success, I also wish you some failure as well. Get out there, take a chance with these startups, push forward, take the same risk as you do hanging off that edge that you would in business. Tusen takk for your time. Thank you.